Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I feel like every time that I do a video, something has drastically changed these last few videos. So yes, now I have red hair. It wasn't exactly a spur of the moment decision. I've been wanting to do it for the last year and a half, and I just wanted to wait for fall time, so here we are. Today I'm actually going to do my very first book haul, which I'm so excited about. And I want to start this by saying that these books came from a variety of places. Thrift stores, online, like thrift bookstores, Indigo. So yeah, it's not as expensive as it looked, but it definitely wasn't cheap. So let's get into it. I'm going to be also ranking these at the same time about how excited I am to read them. So I'm going to start from the bottom of the pack. There's 12 of them. So in the spot number 12, that may fall before we're done here. Anyways, is The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. The main character in this is a girl named Faith, and her dad was found murdered really unexpectedly, and I guess he wasn't necessarily murdered, he just died in a mysterious way. So as she's going through his belongings, she finds a tree, and I don't know how it comes about, but she basically learns that when she whispers a lie to it, it bears a fruit, and inside the fruit somehow there's a hidden secret. So she basically assumes that that is part of the reason that her dad was killed. This was definitely kind of a spur of the moment purchase. I thought it would be interesting, and I needed a certain amount of books to get free shipping. When I look at it now, I still am excited to read it. I'm not exactly wishing I hadn't bought it necessarily, but at the same time, it could be good. It's just not normally something that I read. As you'll see with literally all of the rest of the ones that I purchased are very similar to each other. So maybe this will be good for a little bit of a different read. A couple of problems that I have with it are the author. I didn't realize previously. I've read one of her books before called The Cuckoo Song, and I really didn't enjoy it. It was in 2016 or maybe even earlier, so it's possible that I would enjoy it more now. I don't even remember what I didn't like about it, but I only rated it 3 stars, and it's quite rare that I rate underneath 4. So that's a little bit unfortunate. Also, when I was looking up this book on Goodreads, I noticed that it is historical fiction, and I really don't like historical things personally, so yeah. There's a lot of reasons that I may not enjoy this book, but yeah, I guess I'll just keep you guys updated on what I think about it. Number 11 on my list is called Alone. This is by, and I hope I pronounced this right, Sin Balog. I've read one of this author's books before. It was called Unnatural Deeds, and I actually did really like it. I rated it 4 stars. I also don't necessarily remember a whole lot what it was about, but I read that one probably 2 years ago now. This one is about a girl named Seda, I think, S-E-D-A. And she moves to this creepy old estate, and she's excited to go for the summer because they're planning on reselling it, but her mom actually decides that she wants to stay and kind of renovate the inside of it instead. So then she's a little bit upset because she's going to be moving away from her friends and such. So the first thing that you notice that, okay, so something's really creepy here, is that she says that she's worried about the solitude bringing out the darkness in her. So then you're kind of okay. And then it immediately talks about there's a blizzard or some kind of winter storm, and a bunch of teenagers get trapped right by the house, so she has no choice but to basically let them in, even though she knows that there's darkness inside the estate, the mansion, but also inside herself. And so then it's talking about her biggest fears come to life. And actually on the front cover, it says a compelling dark confessional with pages that keep you guessing and ending that will blow you sideways. So obviously I was all over that. I will say, I feel like part of the reason I'm not excited about it, and I know this is so stupid, is that I don't love the cover a whole lot. I know that's really ridiculous. It was in the $6 section, which is part of the reason I noticed it. Yeah, I do think that it could be really good. Again, none of these on the list I regret buying. Also, the one that said that, the author that said that was Natalie Richards, which I've talked about on this channel many times. She's the author of 5 Total Strangers, which was my #1 read book in 2020. And I've read, I think, all of her books except for one. So yeah, I am really excited about that part of it. But yeah, so we'll just see how it goes. Okay. I'm realizing after I said that, so maybe I'll just cut all this out, who knows, that she was actually talking about unnatural deeds. Natalie Richards was, not this book, which I also enjoyed. So that's the thing, is that I did enjoy the one book that I read by this author, and that one was actually like not really in my preferred genre, and this one is, so this actually might turn out okay. One last thing about that book is that under the readers also enjoyed part in the Goodreads section, it says that readers also enjoyed 5 Total Strangers, which again is by Natalie Richards. I love her. That was my favorite book that I read in 2020. Go check out that video if you haven't seen it. And The Lake by Natasha Preston. I haven't read The Lake, but I read The Cellar by her and I loved it. And she's one of those authors, which you will see throughout this video, I buy a lot of books from authors that I'm like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And then I'm like, I have 4 books from that author and I've never read any of them. So what if I don't like her writing style? So that's a little oopsies on my part. I think I have 4 or 5 of Natasha Preston's books. And I've only read The Cellar, but I really liked it. So again, that gives me good hopes for this book. Number 10 is, there's a 30% off sticker on it. That also might be part of the reason I bought it. Let's not talk about that. Number 10 on my list is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. So, creepy cover. We love that. This book doesn't have very much on the back as like a blurb to kind of explain what it's about, but it says that there's 3 people that live in this house on Needless Street. A teenage girl who isn't allowed outside after what happened last time. So then it's like, well, what happened last time? And a drunk man who drinks alone in front of the TV trying to ignore his memory gaps. So then it's like, okay. And then the third person that says lives in this house is a cat that enjoys napping and reading the Bible. Honestly, I don't know either, but I thought it sounded interesting. And it says about how an unspeakable secret binds them together, but then a neighbor moves in next door and what's buried among the birch trees may come back to haunt them all. So just seems like a creepier read. I have no idea what it's about, but I was definitely interested in it and it was 30% off, so how could I resist? I'm going to apologize right now in case you can hear noises because my dogs are in here because they won't leave me alone. Anyways, so number 9 on my list is The Red Queen. I hope I don't get any hate for this. It's something that I've always considered reading. I know it's really popular, but I didn't really want to spend the full price on it just because I'm not convinced that I will love it. It's by Victoria Aveyard. I hope I pronounced that correctly as well. But I found this in really good condition at a thrift bookstore for $6, so I figured I might as well try it. Part of the reason I don't think I'll be interested in it or that I never picked it up to read is I don't normally read fantasy, and I feel like this is more of like a fantasy kind of thing, a little bit dystopian. I'm not really sure, honestly. So basically in this, there are 2 kinds of blood in this world. There's people with red blood, which are like the commoners, and people with silver blood, which are kind of more like the royalty and they have powers. So one of the girls that has red blood, she starts to actually work around all the silver people and she discovers that she has powers herself, which is kind of like, okay, how's that possible? Because everything in the world was strict really until then. So then, kind of scared about what this might mean, the Silvers show her off as like the long lost silver princess, and now she's engaged to a silver prince. And so everything very quickly changes. She basically works from the inside to kind of try to take down the silver regime, but also like not get caught at the same time. So I thought that it sounded interesting. It's a little bit like Dorothy Must Die now that I've read that one. It definitely is a little bit similar. So yeah, I am excited to read this one just because I know how popular it is, but I'm a little bit worried about it. Number 8 on my list is Frozen Beauty by Lexa Hillier. This one would be much higher on my list until I started to read some of the reviews for it, which I did after I'd already bought it. I probably still would have bought it anyways, but I'm a little more nervous about it now. Basically there's 3 sisters and the oldest one gets murdered and the middle one is distraught, but she's convinced that it's not the boy next door that everybody thinks that it is. They all assume that he's the killer, but she really doesn't think there's any way he could have done it. So there's a couple lines that really drew me towards this book. Right at the end of the explanation, it says, at the core of that complicated night is a truth that's heartbreakingly simple. So that really interested me because I'm like, what's so simple about it? Also the cover is gorgeous, which I will talk about in a second because that's a huge thing about this book. The other thing thing that was interesting is when it was talking about the oldest sister having been murdered, it was saying all they have is a constellation of facts: icy blue lips and fingers cold at the touch, a lacy bra, and an abandoned pickup truck with keys still in the ignition. So that drew me in immediately because I was like, whoa, like what do all those things have to do with each other? Where is this going? So I am really interested in that. I've been looking at this book for a long time, but the ratings on Goodreads were actually horrible for this book. Not necessarily that bad, but it was like less than 3.5 stars. Pretty much everyone I read is like 4. And when I was just scrolling through, I wasn't looking at like any of the spoiler reviews, but people were saying like, this book doesn't deserve its cover. Like, I'd get the cover tattooed on my body, but the story really wasn't good. And I'm like, crap, because that is also part of the reason that I bought it. I love the cover. But yeah, maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe I'll be different. Who knows? There were some people that rated it 5 stars, but then there was also the people that rated it 1. So who knows? Number 7 on my list is First Case by James Patterson. This is actually the first adult book of James Patterson's that I own and that I will be reading. I'm at that awkward age where I'm trying to move from teen books to more adult books, and I've read pretty much all of James Patterson's teen books, so I thought that this might be a good transition one because it's similar to the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which I love. So basically, it's about the main character named Angela, and she hacks one of her classmates' computers at MIT, and so then she gets kicked out of school, but then she gets an internship with the FBI, and immediately gets plunged into like this really like crazy case where she's trying to track these murderous brothers, but her obsessiveness that was so good at MIT might be like fatal in the field. So I thought that that was interesting. It reminded me, again, a lot of the Naturals, and I love James Patterson. Part of what I love is the chapters are always really short in his books, so I'm hoping I can read this one pretty quickly. Number 6 on my list is Unleashed by Danielle Vega. How's everyone's day been? Good? Did you have a good day? Anyways. My camera's gonna die, so I'm just gonna keep going. I'm trying to get off the sticker, but it doesn't want to come off. Anyways, so that's as good as I can do for right now. This is actually the sequel to one of her books called The Haunted. It's actually probably my least favorite of her books, but I do really like her writing. And I honestly was a little bit surprised that there was a second book. Like, the last line kind of added something that I was like, okay, that could be a second book, but otherwise everything else was pretty much resolved. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I am not going to describe the plot of this one. It would spoil literally everything about the first book, but I do recommend the first book at the same time. It's kind of like a haunted house kind of thing. It's just a little more basic than Danielle Vega's books are. I've talked about one of her series before, The Merciless, on my channel. If you haven't seen that, it'll be linked here, somewhere. The link will be down below. Anyways, something like that. Janelle always does that for me. Thank you. But yeah, I love that series and I love a lot of her books, so I definitely recommend her as an author, and go check out that video if you haven't already seen it. Number 5 on my list is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. This is... Can you tell this is my first book haul? Really? How'd you know? This is yet another sticker that doesn't want to come off. So anyways, we'll deal with it. This is The Cheerleaders by Kara Thomas. This is one of the books I was referencing earlier when I say this is now the 4th book of hers that I've purchased, and I haven't read any of them. Not because I don't think that they sound good, I just like have other priorities on my books right now. But yeah, I thought that this one sounded really good. I've also been looking at this one for a while. So basically, 5 years ago, there was a cheer team, and all of the cheerleaders ended up dying in really mysterious ways. Some of them were murdered. The main character, Monica, her sister committed suicide. She was the last of the cheerleaders to die. And so basically then the school like stops the cheer team, obviously. Because they're like, I don't know what's happening, but this is dangerous. So then it's 5 years later, and Monica's just trying to move on. But all of a sudden she's like finding weird things. She finds letters in her stepdad's desk. It doesn't say what kind of letters, but letters. And unearths an old cell phone, and there's like someone new at her school, and all of a sudden it seems like this isn't over, and it's all surrounding Monica, and it seems like nobody's really telling her the whole story. So there's not very much information on this one either, but I thought that it sounded really good and definitely had potential, so I am quite excited to read this one. And even though it's the 4th of her books that I bought, I still think it'll be the 1st that I will read. Number 4 on my list is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This might be showing how far behind on editing my videos I am, but this is all over Book Talk right now, and I didn't honestly really realize what it was about, but when I looked it up I was like, okay, there's no way that I cannot get this book. So I just bought this one like full price. It's described as The Haunting of Hill House, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, meets Get Out, which I haven't seen, surprisingly, with my love of horror movies, but I heard that it's obviously really good. It's definitely very well known. So the main character, Marigold, she gets a new fresh start by moving into a house. It's a new house, it's newly renovated, but it's in a very dilapidated neighborhood, so then you kind of get the feeling that the house was probably really old originally as well. It's honestly like haunted house normalities, like there's dark shadows, bad smells, doors opening and closing, items are vanishing, that kind of thing. And her stepsister actually is saying that she's got a new friend in the house that wants Marigold gone. So it doesn't seem like it's gonna be revolutionary. It seems a little bit like basic haunted house, but I mean, all the books I read are kind of basic haunted house, and this one is just absolutely everywhere, and it's got reviews from Karen M. McManus, the author of One of Us is Lying, and R.L. Stein, obviously the author of Goosebumps and Fear Street, so I am really excited to read this one. Another thing that I'm excited for is a lot of Book Talk books are more like fantasy related, which I don't love, so I can't really participate, but I'm excited for that one because that's definitely more up my alley. Number 3 on my list.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Number 3 on my list is The Night She Disappeared by Lisa Jewell. This is another author that I just keep buying her books, and I haven't read any of them, but they all sound so good. She writes a lot of thrillers. She's an adult writer, so if you're younger reading this one might not be the one for you. So basically, a woman goes out with her boyfriend, and it's their first time being out since they've had a kid, and her mom is back looking after the kid, and they never come back. And so then her mom's really concerned, and she's calling all of her daughter's friends. The mother's really concerned, and she's calling all of her daughter's friends, and even the boyfriend's mom doesn't seem very concerned. She's like, oh, they probably just ran away, but it's like they literally just had a kid and they just left the kid and didn't say anything. Like, it didn't make any sense, and all of her daughter's friends just keep brushing her off and like ignoring her questions. 1 year after the case runs cold, a writer moves into a cottage that's in the same kind of area where the couple disappeared, and while she's walking through the woods, she finds a note that says dig here. And so then it's like, could this be connected to the couple that went missing? Like, what's buried in the earth? Like, that kind of thing. And so again, obviously I was all over that. Lisa Jewell is very like well-known, renowned author, so I'm excited about this, and I've already heard really good things. I feel like it was released recently because it's kind of like everywhere right now, but I've been hearing very good things about it. Number 2 is Not a Happy Family by Sherry Lapena, maybe? This is yet another adult book. When I picked it up and I thought it sounded interesting, and then I looked and it was like a full $10 off. And even when I was checking it out at Indigo, the cashier was like, this is a really good deal. And I was like, yeah, I know. So basically, it's about a rich couple, and they have an Easter dinner with their 3 children, and like adult children, and they're murdered right after dinner, like the older couple is, and so immediately then it says the 3 are devastated, or are they? And then it's kind of like, okay, or did one of them do it? One of the things that kind of leads to that is it's like one of them, or like they will inherit millions with their parents being gone, so obviously that's a great motive. And I wanted to read out part of it, the ending part that really got me, and I was like, I need this book. It's talking about, did someone snap, like someone being one of the 3 children, or did another person appear later that night with the worst of intentions? That must be what happened. After all, if one of your family were capable of something as gruesome as this, you'd know, wouldn't you? And I was like, I don't know. So I was really excited to read this one, and yeah, that's why this is number 2 on my list. Okay, so number 1 on my list is like kind of a cheat. This is Hidden Bodies. It's the 2nd book in the You series, and it's a cheat because I am currently reading it. I couldn't wait to film this video. I just immediately started the book. I'm not very far into it. I'm only about 60 pages, but I do really like it so far. I have also already seen the 2nd season, but I didn't know that there was a 2nd book, so it's not my fault. I won't explain it in case it spoils you if you haven't already seen it or if you haven't read it and you want to. I highly recommend this whole series. I also love the author's writing. I don't know, I find it such an easy read. All I want to do is read when I'm reading one of her books. And I'm hoping to finish this one quite quickly so that I can read the third one before the third season comes out, which is coming out literally 2 weeks from today, and that would be impossible for me to do except that I have reading week coming up for university, so fingers crossed that I can get through that. So that's all for today's review. Let me know down in the comments if you've heard anything about these books or if you think that they will be good, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys! Because number 5 on that, a teenage girl who isn't allowed to something like that. Oh.